You need not dwell upon the feature of illusion. Rather recognize the real nature of the universe, seek to understand its mental laws, endeavor to use them to the best effect in your upward progress through life as you travel from level to level of being. The laws of the universe are nonetheless fixed laws because of the mental nature. Everything except Summum is bound by them, and the essence of Summum is the laws. What is in the infinite mind of Summum is real, in a degree second only to that reality itself which is held in the essence of Summum. You are held firmly in the infinite mind of Summum, and there is nothing to harm you or for you to fear. There is no power outside of Summum to affect you, so you may rest calm and secure. There is a world of comfort, security, and peace in this realization when obtained. Then you will sleep calmly and peacefully, rocked in the cradle of the deep, resting safely on the bosom of the ocean of infinite mind, which is Summum. Truly in Summum do you live, move, and have your being. Matter is still matter to you while you dwell in the field of matter. Although you know it to be merely as composite energy, or strings of force vibrating rapidly and whirling around each other, forming quanta particles within atoms. The atoms in turn vibrate and whirl, forming molecules, which in turn form larger masses of matter. Matter does not become less matter when you follow the inquiry still further and learn from these teachings that the force, of which the energy is but units, is merely an event between a cause and effect relationship. Further, this event is just a manifestation of the mind of Summum, and like all else in the universe, is purely mental in its nature. While in the field of matter, you must recognize its phenomena. You may control matter, as all masters of higher or lesser degrees do, but you do so by applying the higher forces. You commit a folly when you attempt to deny the existence of matter in the relative aspect. You may deny its mastery over you, and rightly so, but you should not attempt to ignore it in its relative aspect, at least so long as you reside within its field. For example, you do not stand on the street and allow vehicles to run you down just because you understand that they are composed of metal, which is merely an alloy of different elements vibrating at known frequencies. Nor do the laws of nature become less constant or effective when you know them to be merely mental creations. They are in full effect in the various fields. You overcome the lower laws by applying still higher ones, and in this way only. You cannot escape law or rise above it entirely. Nothing but Summum can escape law, and that is because Summum is law itself, from which all laws emerge. The most advanced masters acquire the abilities usually attributed to the gods of humankind. There are countless degrees of being in the great hierarchy of life, whose power transcends even that of the highest masters among humankind, and to a magnitude unthinkable by mortals. Yet even the highest masters and the highest beings must yield to the law and be as nothing in the eye of Summum. If even these highest beings, whose power greatly exceed those attributed by humankind to their gods, if even these are bound by and are subservient to law, then imagine the presumption of mortal humans of your race and degree who dare to consider the laws of nature as unreal, because they happen to be able to grasp the fact that the laws are mental in nature and are simply mental creations of Summum, they feel they can be disregarded. Those laws which Summum emanates as governing laws are not to be defied or argued away. So long as the universe endures, will they endure. For the universe exists by virtue of these laws, which form its framework and hold it together. The Summum principle of psychokinesis, while explaining the nature of the universe upon the principle that all is mental, does not change the scientific conceptions of the universe, life, or evolution. Science often corroborates these Summum teachings except for the theory of the mental creation of the universe. Summum teaches that the nature of the universe is mental, while modern science teaches that it is material, or more recently, energy. So the student of Summum need not lay aside any of their scientific views regarding the universe. All they are asked to do is to grasp the underlying principles of the copulation of creation. Summum is mind. The universe is mental, held in the mind of Summum. They will find that the principles of Summum will fit into their scientific knowledge and will serve to bring out obscure points and to throw light in dark corners. This is not to be wondered at when you realize the influence of the Summum thought on the early philosophies of Greece, upon whose foundation the theories of modern science largely rest. The acceptance of the Summum principle of psychokinesis is the only great point of difference between modern science and the Summum philosophy, and science is gradually moving toward the Summum position in its search for the origins of creation. Witness the evolution in physics of the Big Bang Theory. The purpose of this chapter is to impress upon you the fact that, for all intents and purposes, the universe and its laws and its phenomena are just as real, so far as humans are concerned, as they would be under the hypothesis of materialism, or as held by science today. Under any hypothesis, the universe in its exoteric aspect is changing, ever-flowing, and transitory, and therefore devoid of substantiality and reality. For anything that is in the state of change cannot be an absolute. Yet under and of the same hypothesis, you are compelled to act and live as if the fleeting things were real and substantial. Under the old view, mental power was ignored as a natural force, while under psychokinesis it becomes the greatest natural force. This one difference revolutionizes life for those who understand the principle and its resulting laws and practice. Take advantage of psychokinesis and learn to know, use, and apply the laws resulting from it. Do not yield to the temptation which, as Summum states, overcomes the partially wise and causes them to be hypnotized by the apparent unreality of things. The consequences that they wander about like people living in a dream, ignoring the practical work and life of humanity, and are forced into an awakening at last by their falling, bruised, and bleeding over the natural laws which they have ignored. Rather, follow the example of the wise, which the same authority states, use law against laws, the higher against the lower, and by the art of psychokinesis after that which is undesirable into that which is perfected, and thus, let me read that again, and by the art of psychokinesis alter that which is undesirable into that which is perfected, and thus prevail. Following the wisdom, avoid partial wisdom, senselessness, which ignores the fact that mastery consists not in abnormal dreams, visions, and fantastic imaginings are living, but in using the higher forces against the lower, escaping the pains of the lower fields by rising to the higher. Remember always that psychokinesis, not presumptuous denial, is the tool of the master. Do not live in a world of dreams, but in a universe which, while relative, is real so far as your life and actions are concerned. Your business in the universe is not to deny its existence, but to live using the laws to rise from lower to higher, living on, doing the best that you can under the circumstances. Rise each day and live, so far as it is possible, your highest ideals and ideals. The meaning of life is not known to humans on this level, but the highest few and your own institutions teach you that you will make no mistake in living up to the best that is in you. Realize the universal tendency is in the same direction in spite of apparent evidences to the contrary. You are all on your proper path, and the road leads ever upward with frequent resting places. Read the message of Summum and follow the example of the wise. Avoid the mistake of the partially wise who digress by reason of their indiscretion. Gotta let a dog out of the room. Go. Sorry, I'm having to hold my camera because my tripod is messing up. I have a few more minutes. Summum is everything. While everything is in Summum, it is equally factual that Summum is in everything. Those who understand this maxiom have great knowledge. Summum. How often have the majority of people repeatedly heard statements that their deity, called by many names, is within everything, all in all. God is everywhere. Summum is in everything. How little have they suspected the esoteric truth concealed by these words. The commonly used expression is a survival of an ancient maxim quoted above. In this statement is concealed one of the greatest philosophical, scientific, and religious truths. You have been given the teaching regarding the mental nature of the universe, the fact that the universe is mental, held in the mind of Summum. As stated above, everything is in Summum. Note also the corollary statement. It is equally true that Summum is in everything. This apparent contradictory statement is reconcilable under the law of paradox. It is an exact statement of the relations existing between Summum and its mental universe. You have seen how everything is in Summum. Now examine the other aspect of the subject. Summum is immanent in, remaining within, inherent, abiding within its universe, and in every particle, unit, or combination within the universe. This statement is usually illustrated by the reference to the principle of correspondence. Form a mental image of something, a person, an idea, something having a mental form. A classic example is that of the author or dramatist forming an idea of their characters, or a painter or sculptor forming an image of an ideal that they wish to express through art. In each case, you will find that while the image has its existence and being solely within the artist's mind, the author, dramatist, painter, or sculptor is, in a sense, immanent in, remaining within, or abiding within the mental image also. In other words, the entire virtue, life, spirit of reality in the mental image is derived from the immanent mind of the one who expresses. Consider this for a moment until the ideal is understood. As an illustration, let's say that Othello, Hamlet, or Lear existed in the mind of Shakespeare at the time of their conception of our creation. Yet Shakespeare also existed within each of these characters, giving them their vitality, spirit, and action. Whose is the spirit of the characters that you know as Micawber, Oliver Twist, Uriah Heep? Is it Dickens, or have each of these characters a personal spirit independent of their creator? Do the artworks of Medici, the Sistine Madonna, or the Apollo Belvedere have spirit and reality of their own, or do they represent the spiritual and mental powers of their creators? The law of paradox explains that both propositions are true. Micawber is both Micawber and yet Dickens. While Micawber may be said to be Dickens, Dickens is not identical with Micawber. Humans like Micawber may exclaim, "The spirit of my creator is inherent within me, yet I am not it." How different is this from the shocking, partial truth so voraciously proclaimed by many of the partially wise who fill the air with their harsh cries of, "I am God." Imagine poor Micawber or the sneaky Uriah Heep crying, "I am Dickens," or some of the characters in one of Shakespeare's play, grandiosely announcing that I am Shakespeare. Summum is within the earthworm, but the worm is far from being summoned. Still, the wonder remains that though the earthworm exists merely as a lowly thing created and having its being solely within the mind of Summum, Summum is immanent in the earthworm and in the particles that go to make up the earthworm, even down to the smallest units discovered by science today. Summum is immanent within them. Can there be any greater mystery than this? Of everything is Summum, and Summum in everything? You will realize that the illustrations given above are imperfect and inadequate, for they represent the creation of mental images of finite minds, while the universe is a creation of infinite mind. The difference between the two opposing points separates them, yet it is merely a matter of degree. The same principle is in operation. The principle of correspondence manifest in each. As above, so below, as below, so above. In the degrees that humans realize the existence of the indwelling spirit immanent within their being, by directing their attention to the spirit within and storing potential within that spirit, they empower themselves with the essence of Summum. As they convert their treasure of kinetic mental action to spiritual potential, so will they progress in the spiritual levels of life. This is what spiritual progression means: the recognition, realization, and manifestation of the spirit within you. Regarding this last definition, that of spiritual progression, it contains the veracity of genuine religion. There are many levels of being, many sub-levels of life, many degrees of existence in the universe. All depend upon the advancement of beings in the scale in which the lowest point is the grossest matter and the highest is separated only by the thinnest division from the spirit of Summum. Upward and onward along this scale of life, everything moves. All are on the path whose end is Summum. All progress is a returning home. Despite all seemingly contradictory appearances, all movement is towards spiritual development. Such is the message of the Summa individuals. The Summa teachings concerning the process of the mental creation of the universe are that at the beginning of the creative cycle, Summa, in its aspect of being, projects its will toward its aspect of becoming, and the process of creation begins. The process consists of the lowering of vibration until a very low degree of vibratory energy is reached, the point at which the grossest possible form of matter manifests. This process is called the stage of involution, in which Summum becomes involved or wrapped up in its creation. This process has a correspondence to the mental process of an artist, writer, or inventor who becomes so wrapped up in their creation as to almost forget their own existence, and who, for the time being, almost live in their creation. If instead of wrapped, you use the word wrap, R-A-P-T, perhaps you will get a better idea of what is meant. The involutionary stage of creation is something called the outpouring of the divine energy, just as the evolutionary stage is called the indrawing. The extreme opposing point of the creative process is considered to be the furthest removed from Summum, while the beginning of the evolutionary stage is regarded as the beginning of the return swing of the pendulum of rhythm. It is the coming home ideal held in all of the Summum teachings. During the outpouring, the vibrations become lower and lower until finally the urge ceases and the return swing begins. There is this difference. In the outpouring, the creative forces manifest compactly and as a whole, but from the beginning of the evolutionary or indrawing stage, there is manifested the law of individualization, that is, the tendency to separate into units of force. Eventually, that which left Summum as individualized energy returns to its source as countless, highly developed collective units of life, having risen higher and higher in the scale by means of physical, mental, and spiritual evolution. The individualized units of life join together in harmony, oneness, and communion as they collectively return to their source. The word meditation is used in describing the process. The word meditation is used in describing the process of the mental creation of the universe in the mind of Summum. The word contemplation is also frequently employed, but the ideal intended seems to be that of the employment of the divine attention. Attention is a word derived from the Latin root meaning to reach out, to stretch out. So the act of attention is really a mental reaching out or extension of mental energy. Thus, the underlying ideal is readily understood when you examine the real meaning of attention. The teachings of the process of evolution are that Summum, having meditated upon the beginning of the creation, having thus established the material foundations of the universe, and having mentally formed it into existence, awakens or arouses from its meditation. In so doing, it starts into manifestation the process of evolution on the material, mental, and spiritual levels, successively and in order. Thus the upward movement begins, and all begins to move spiritward. Matter becomes less gross. The units spring into being. The combinations begin to form. Life appears and manifests in higher and higher forms. Mind becomes more and more in evidence. The vibrations are constantly becoming higher. In short, the entire process of evolution, in all of its phases, begins and proceeds according to the established laws of the indrawing process. All of this occupies eons upon eons of human time, each eon containing countless billions of years. Yet the Summa individuals inform us that the entire creation including involution and evolution of a universe, is but as the twinkle of the eye to Summum. At the end of countless cycles of eons of time, Summum withdraws its attention, its contemplation and meditation of the universe. For the great work is finished and everything is withdrawn into Summum, from which it emerged. The spirit of each soul is not annihilated, but it is infinitely expanded. The created and the creator are merged. Such is the report of the Summa individuals. The above illustration of the meditation and subsequent awakening from meditation of Summa is, of course, but an attempt to describe the infinite process by finite example. Yet, as above, so below, the difference is merely in degrees. Just as Summum arouses itself from the meditation upon the universe, so do humans in time cease from manifesting upon the material field and withdraw themselves more and more into the indwelling spirit, which is the divine ego. There is one more matter I desire to speak of in this chapter. It comes very near to an invasion of the metaphysical field of speculation, although my purpose is merely to show the futility of such speculation. I allude to the question which inevitably comes to the mind of all thinkers who have ventured to seek understanding. The question is, why does Summum create universes? The question may be asked in different forms, but the above is the gist of the inquiry. This is going to cut off at any time. Humans have struggled hard to answer this question. Some have imagined that Summa had something to gain by it, but this is absurd, for what could Summa gain that it did not already possess? Others have sought the answer in the idea that Summa wishes something to love, and others that it created for pleasure or amusement, or because it was lonely, or to manifest its power, all silly explanations and ideas belonging to the childish state of thought. Others have sought to explain the mystery by assuming that Summa found itself compelled to create by reason of its own internal nature, its creative instinct. This idea is in advance of the others. Summum does create and manifest, and seems to find some kind of satisfaction in so doing. It is difficult to escape the conclusion that in some infinite degree it must have what would correspond to the inner nature or creative instinct in humans, with correspondingly infinite amounts of desire and will. It could not act unless it willed to act, and it would not will to act unless it desired to act, and it would not desire to act unless it obtained some